Hi everybody and welcome to Heel Heat. My name is George Coles and on this episode we're walking in Memphis. Topic of this Walking in Memphis, CWA Wrestling from May 19th, 1984. And if you want to check out the video we reviewed for this, it'll be down here in the description. If you haven't seen my videos before, we rank everything on a 1 to 5 scale. 1 is the worst, 5 is the best. For these, we go segment to segment, basically commercial break to commercial break. That being said, let's jump right in. First up, we get an interview with Jim the Anvil Neidhart, in the Mouth of the South, Jimmy Hart. And during the interview, they show the previous Mid-South Coliseum matches where Jim Neidhart got involved in about 4 or 5 different matches, causing disqualifications for Jimmy Hart's first family. I thought this was a fantastic way to portray a guy as a serious threat, as someone who's going to come in and just be a destroyer and wreck shop and do whatever he wants to whoever he wants, really legitimizing Neidhart as being a total badass in the company. I thought this was a fantastic interview and video segment. Going from that, we go right into an interview with Harley Davidson, which if you're not familiar, Harley Davidson would go on to be Hillbilly Jim later. It was kind of cool seeing him in this character. You get so used to seeing a guy like him in his more famous role as Hillbilly Jim and how he talks as Hillbilly Jim and how he acts as Hillbilly Jim. Where you look at him here, he's a lot more akin to the Boogie Woogie Man Jimmy Valiant than he would be to his Hillbilly Jim character. It's a pretty cool interview. Goes right into a match. Harley Davidson versus Rooster Cogburn. Kind of interesting that Harley Davidson's a known company. Rooster Cogburn is a character from the movie True Grit. This is a quick match. Harley Davidson picks up the win. He comes back to the announce table. They show a video with him and Dirty Rhodes going up against the PYT Express, who at this point is Norvell Austin and Stagger Lee. All that was pretty cool. Like I said, I really enjoyed how they built Neidhart as a destroyer. I liked seeing Harley Davidson pre-Hillbilly Jim. I'm going to give that segment a 5. Next up, we have some interviews. First with the Zambui Express, who is Elijah Hakeem and Kareem Muhammad, and then followed up by Macho Man Randy Savage. Pretty cool little interviews here. I thought they were both interesting. Obviously, Savage carries the group here. The Zambui Express were kind of playing a Muslim, anti-white kind of gimmick here. It was kind of interesting even back at this time frame that they would play off of racial tension, even though that Memphis was not really known as an area that had, at least wrestling wise, there was a lot more desegregation there. Famously, Sputnik Monroe was the guy that got the fans to be desegregated, so kind of interesting knowing the history of Memphis. Going from that, we get an interview with Jarrett, who's talking about laying fines, which brings out Jerry Lawler, Dutch Mantell, Austin Idol, Tommy Rich, and Eddie Gilbert, who were going as the new Fabulous Ones at the time, and they're all talking to him, basically Lawler mostly, about Neidhart and how Neidhart should be fined. However, Neidhart thought that they should be fine because they came out to help Eddie Marlin. An interesting thing here, this was really good. I mean, look at the murderer's row of people you have here. Jerry Jarrett, Jerry Lawler, Dutch Mantell, Austin Idol, Tommy Wildfire Rich, Eddie Gilbert. I mean, you pretty much got a who's who of Memphis wrestling in this segment. Going from that, we go to a video for Lured Humongous, where they splice in the Mad Max movie, which on the video I watched, they cut out the music, which I gotta imagine it used something that triggered a copyright claim, so the person that put this video up took it down and took that part out. But it was kind of funny seeing them use the character from Mad Max, who Lord Humongous obviously is based on, in the video with him. That leads us right into a match with Lord Humongous against the most unfortunately named wrestler in the history of wrestling. I say this every time, Ken Raper. And for the rest of this video, if I mention him, I'm going to call him Ken R because it's a horrible name. Humongous just runs through him, pretty much destroys him, much like with Neidhart. They're showing another guy that could be a dominant destroyer here. Afterwards, we get to see clips of a video with Lord Humongous versus Jerry Lawler, where Ox Baker gets involved, Neidhart gets involved, Austin Idol gets involved. It was all pretty good. For that whole segment, I'm giving that a 5. I thought everything there was very entertaining, much like the first segment. Now going from that, we go into Our next segment starts off with an interview with Ox Baker. Ox, for a guy that didn't get as big popularity-wise as some of the other heels of his time, Ox could really cut a promo. He really made you believe in his character. I really enjoyed this promo. From that, we go into a promo with Jimmy Hart and the PYT Express. Again, Norvell Austin and Stagger Lee. That leads us right into a match with the PYT Express versus the new Fabulous Ones, which is Rich and Gilbert again. This turns into a brawl rather quickly. They end up brawling for longer than the match took. Rich and Gilbert pick up the win on this. That whole segment I thought was pretty good. A little bit down from the first two, but not badly. I'm giving that segment a 4. Now going from that, we get Bugsy McGraw and Dutch Mantell going up against the Pink Panther and Keith Robinson. This is a quick, less than 2-minute match. Bugsy and Dutch pick up the win on this, and that's the only thing they show for that segment. For that, because it was basically a nothing, and they ran through it real quickly, I'm giving that a 3. I don't mind when they have quick squash matches, and this is kind of why I do this the way I do with segment by segment, because a lot of these are going to be squash matches, so I consider the interviews and everything as part of it. By itself, not as impressive. Like, for instance, if I was going to do the Lord Humongous versus Ken R match by itself, I probably wouldn't rate it as high as I rated the whole segment. It probably would have been a 2 or a 3 itself. Like I said, just because that was a standalone, it gets a little lesser rating. Now going from that, we get some local promos with Harley Davidson and Austin Idol. Harley talks first, then it goes to Austin Idol, and then we get into the main event, which was talked about through most of the show. Jim Neidhart, Rick Rude, and Pork Chop Cash going up against Jerry the King Lawler, Brickhouse Brown, and Scott Shannon. This was a really fun match, and it was structured in a way that made you think that it was going to go to a time limit draw, where at the very last second, Jerry Lawler sneaks in a pin. The face team of Lawler, Brickhouse Brown, and Scott Shannon pick up the win on this one. I thought this was another good segment. I'm going to give this one a 4. I did like this match better because it was more competitive. I felt like it told a story with the time limit and how it went back and forth with that. So for that, I gave it a better rating. Overall, I'm going to give this show a 4. I thought it was really enjoyable. Lots of good promos here. A lot of great character work. Seeing guys like Neidhart and Harley Davidson, aka Hillbilly Jim, when they're younger. Coco Beware when he's younger as Stagger Lee. Seeing Tommy Rich, Eddie Gilbert, young, all these guys here in their beginning of the career. Then you got all-timers like Savage and Lawler and Idol and Dutch Mantell and Tommy Rich, all these guys that would be legends in the area and legends in wrestling in general. I thought this was overall a great show. Again, I'm going to give it a 4. I thought it was pretty good. Now going from that, if you made it to the end, let's smash that like button, share the video, subscribe if you haven't. And if you made it to the end, give me the anvil for Jim Neidhart, since this show really put him over as a monster. With all that being said, my name is George Coles, and we've been walking in Memphis.